are listening to the Cinderbury Chronicles. Journey with us into the world of Copper Hollow.
Welcome to Copper Hollow, a rundown borough in the vast industrial city of Cinderbury. Grab a cuppa and settle in. This is our 8th episode. I'm P. Rose, narrator and voice of Amelia in this episode.
And I'm Orphin, and I'll be the voice of
the patrol officer in this episode.
Chapter 7, The Copperwalk Fire. It has been several decades since the Wright Orphanage has held any legitimacy. With less than a dozen automatons living within its vast halls, why does it still persist? In the wake of the last matron's death, it may be time to consider closing its doors for good. With automatons taking up over 37% of the officially registered workforce, is it time to consider turning the orphanage into a place for the living and not the dead? Philip Johnson of the Cinderbury Observer. The residents of Copper Walk close their curtains, turn their lights off and retreat to their bedrooms. Searchlights blaze as an airship hovers above the neighbourhood, illuminating the dank, shabby streets. At the end of Copper Walk is a tall, dilapidated industrial building looming over the grubby, interlocking flats. Young men in white shirts and braces hide in its shadows. Gasoline drips down the walls, reflecting the glow of a man's cigarette.
Oi! What are you doing?
A voice calls. The men look up to see an officer at the end of the alley. They run. The man with the cigarette throws it behind him. Bang! A shot rings out, echoing through the gully, smashing a lamppost. The old warehouse ignites. The flame quickly climbs the walls, consuming the building. The doors of the warehouse begin to rattle as the banging within becomes louder by the second. The officer pants and stops in the middle of the street, bending over to catch his breath. The young men run ahead, too fast to catch. Other officers rush onto the scene. They ram the doors, the banging becoming desperate. Smoke billows from the windows of the old building, choking Copper Walk. The road comes alive with people clamouring to get away from the spreading fire. Parents calling for their children as they rush out of their homes. The fire crawling down the street. Police officers manage to bash open the doors. Automatons escape the roaring flames, stampeding the officers as the building begins to collapse in on itself. Officers, civilians and automatons flee. People shout as the flames grow higher and higher in the night sky. Amelia wakes with a start. Banging reverberates through the orphanage, bouncing off of the tall ceilings. She scrambles out of bed and stumbles across the landing as bots emerge from their rooms. Her head throbs as the knocking continues. "I'm coming!" she calls, making her way down the grand staircase. She pulls the heavy metal door. It whines as it opens to unveil broken and burnt automatons. They part, revealing bots and carts. They pull the carts up the steps and into the orphanage, avoiding the flowers and candles people had left in respect of Ada. "Whoa! Hold on! What is this? What happened?" she asks the crowd. A large steel automaton turns to her, its torso rectangular, its joints corroded, and its head round. She recognises the model, noticing the bot's jaw is rusty. The bot shakes its head and points at its mouth. "You can't speak?" she asks tentatively, as a bot is wheeled inside. The bot nods. Amelia approaches her aunt's workshop. Her hand trembles as it reaches for the door handle. She pushes the doors open to reveal polished metal works, old schematics pinned to the walls, books sit on high shelves, and tools hide in every corner. She gulps and beckons the bots to follow. "Blinky?" she calls. Blinky moves through the crowd, his brass body stark against the steel. He moves straight towards an old toolbox, picking it up and delivering it to Amelia. "Thanks, Blinky. Could you go and fetch Paul?" Blinky runs off and she turns to the damaged bots. "Okay, line up. We will start with the worst, I suppose. Who's first?" The bots begin clanking into one another, grappling for places in the queue. Some bots push each other, moving them forcibly behind. Amelia shakes her head. "Stop it!" she commands. They settle down, and Paul and Blinky return. She smiles at Blinky and turns to Paul. Could you bring that one to my workbench, please, Paul? A butt in a cart is wheeled forward and placed on the sturdy metal operating bench with an adjustable overhead light. The butt lies there, legless, burnt and fuming. She grits her teeth, gathering her nerves, feeling a weight of responsibility. She unscrews the butt's chest plate, revealing its inner workings. The ichor tank, the soul of any automaton, is in a sorry state. The tank is a hub for wires and tubes that would normally be neatly routed throughout the body. Instead, she is greeted with a tangled jumble of lines, wires frayed, tubes close to bursting, and the insulation is crumbling. Amelia recalls Ada's number one rule. She inspects the tank carefully. One small fracture in the person they are could leak onto the floor. She inspects the rest of the body. Metal joints poke into the torso, leading to the butt's limbs. Nothing too serious. Poor D is running on empty though. And look at these wires. When was the last time you saw a real engineer? She shakes her head and turns to Blinky. Get some ambrosia, duct tape and crutches. Amelia sweats over each automaton in turn, finding breaks, burn damage and negligent jury rigging everywhere. The further she delves, the more she realises how mistreated these automatons must have been. For everything that was broken in the fire, there seems to be twice as much broken from neglect. She hadn't noticed Albert come in spite of his daunting gaze. He watches his granddaughter silently, ready to point out any mistakes she might make. That was chapter 7 of Copper Hollow. Hope you enjoyed it. This is part of a podcast series where we record the audiobook and you get to be the first ones to listen for the wonderful price of free. Another hit piece on the orphanage from Philip Johnson.
Ugh, he's a terror.
He absolutely is. I mean, I feel like he's just hitting them while they're down. Like, they're not in a position to say anything. Amelia and Albert and the entire family are grieving Ada's death, and that he's just using this as an opportunity to go after them.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a really nasty way. So before it was a personal attack against Ada, which was low enough. But now he's questioning the entire validity of the institution and saying like there's nobody there. He's really leaning in and seeing like the preacher and Luddites. This seems like an extension of that.
I feel like he's just trying to fan the flames of hatred towards automatons here. That's what he's doing. And he's lumping in anything the rights have done to be like, oh, they're the problem. When actually they're trying to get equal rights for automatons so that they don't keep taking all the jobs over regular everyday people, so that they all get the same wages and there's no difference between them. But he's acting like that they are actually enabling this system rather than trying to fix it.
Yeah, and he's saying like 37% of the officially registered workforce, which could be a total lie, but we're saying that's a ballpark figure that he just throws around. And it's that attempt to create fear that they're taking your jobs, they're taking your livelihoods, and this institution is enabling them.
And this is the problem we have with the newspapers in general and the news. So here they don't have this, but we currently have a 24-hour news cycle that is constantly trying to fearmonger us into watching, right? Mm-hmm. This is what he's doing here. This is an early rendition of this. It's like, oh, listen to what I have to say about a charity because they're bad guys, and I'm going to tell you why they're bad guys, and it's not going to be very convincing.
Yeah.
But I'll roll you up and say the right words to make you upset about something that you don't need to be upset about.
Yeah, he's taking a grain of truth, which is people's desperate situation and their lack of employment, and then creating that other of the automatons and getting people riled up and getting people fearful. And then he's using the rights as a cast of characters. This is somebody to point to that he can caricature, as we saw what he did with Ada.
Yeah, exactly. He is just trying to stoke the flames and build up on this hatred that people already are feeling towards automatons and direct it towards the rights in this moment of vulnerability.
And then we can see what happens in another part of the city that night. There's a huge airship with lights blazing down on this poor community, and there's some nefarious activities happening.
Yeah, so we have what I'm going to call the police raid, which is, it's such an
Yes.
overblown thing that they have this great massive airship going down this tiny little street. I think the airship is bigger than the street,
Oh
right?
yeah, this would be a big
So
airship.
you've got this great massive airship going down this impoverished street to this building, and there's these thugs, and they've put gasoline on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arsonists.
And the thing is, they don't even set the bloody fire. It is the incompetence of the police that sets the fire.
Yes, so this patrol officer fires after them and sets this fire. And now they probably intended on setting this fire. There's something going on, but it just is
Oh,
funny.
they were going to,
Yeah.
but they could have scared them off, stopped the fire entirely. But instead of just scaring them off,
Yeah.
he decided to shoot at them. And by trying to shoot at them and missing terribly, he sets off this whole fire that destroys the neighbourhood. We see all sorts of people running out of their homes, trying to get away from this. And as soon as the massive police air balloon comes out, everybody's trying to hide because they know things are going to go down and they're not ready. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to exist peacefully.
Absolutely, they were closing their curtains on this activities, and at the end of the day, this police officer is probably extremely afraid and jumpy. So you can see how fear is playing across this whole society.
Yeah, and in this scene, the police are as dangerous as the thugs
In a sense, yes.
because they're the one that set the fire at the end of the day. As much as they didn't set out to do that, they enabled it to happen.
You can see that their heavy-handed tactics have plenty of consequences. Now, to be fair, the fire probably would have been set, and those people would have had to run out of their houses anyway. You know, and in theory, if the police hadn't been there, they might have been caught more off guard. But on the other hand,
Yeah.
why was the airship overhead? Was there some tip-off? I think there's a lot of incompetence going on with the way that the police conduct themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there's no need for that kind of resources for, like, a small street. It's overkill, you know?
Yeah. Was this just happening to fly overhead, or was this there ahead of time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was there ahead of time. And I think they were informed. They knew what they were doing here. They got a tip off or something. Then we have these automatons who are like clamoring to get out, and they trample the police trying to get out of this burning building.
Understandably so. Yeah.
They've been locked in there, it seems. Like the police had to forcibly open the building. The only people to come out are automatons, right? So they've been in here for some reason.
For some reason,
And then
yeah, 100%.
They managed to escape, and the whole street is put into chaos as the fire makes its way down the street. And it's such a horrible disaster. Because, like, just think about all those people's homes being destroyed.
Absolutely. They've so little.
Yeah, and they're having their lives just, like, completely uprooted.
One thing I will say for the police in this scene as well, though, because there are good things, is that they were able to help those automatons get out from that locked door.
Yeah.
It was some quick thinking by some of them that acted to save lives.
Absolutely, yeah. It was good that they actually did it. The police are complicated because it's a group of individuals, and you're always going to get different people who do different things. You're going to have good police officers, bad police officers. The problem is more about the way that the system works to allow them to use these ridiculous resources.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fear is double-edged because it's providing the resources and the potentially overfunding of some of the resources that they don't necessarily need to employ in certain ways. But there's this idea among middle class, that particularly middle class, but even working class, there's a fear of the gangs because crime is so out of control of the city. So joining the police, you might even be well aware of the corruption within the constabulary.
Yeah.
And still join the police because you want to fight back. There's crimes is ruling parts of the city.
But the police are almost a gang within themselves as well. Like, this is the thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's just another gang, but this one's supposed to work for the people. Whether it does or not, we'll see.
And we've seen the type of politics in Cinnabury. The truth is there's most definitely a ruling class that keep their interests intact, and we'll learn more about that soon.
Yeah, it's all coming together.
Yep.
And then we cut to the next morning, and Amelia wakes up to this banging, thudding on the door, and all of these damaged automatons standing outside, and they're so quick to get themselves inside. This is kind of her first test as the matron of the orphanage.
Yeah, Copper Hollow is, this happened in Copper Walk, and then this is Copper Hollow. So the Copper District is more or less like a borough of the city.
Yeah.
And so she was maybe one of the first ports of call, if not the first, for these automatons. And like we seen with the flyer that Ada had written, there is a call out that they're there to help. So these bots have turned up at her door for whatever reason, for looking for help.
Yeah, exactly. Because the whole point of the orphanage is to help automatons in need, and these automatons seem really in need.
Yeah, and they don't, as you said, they don't hesitate. They're straight in there.
No, they don't hesitate. They just get in straight away.
And they want to get off the streets for whatever reason.
Yeah. And Amelia kind of proved herself in this moment by jumping straight into action. She realizes they don't have voices to communicate, so she starts organizing them herself. And with the help of Blinky and Paul and eventually Albert, they manage this scenario, which is like kind of chaotic and like not a normal scenario for the orphanage at all.
No,
but she instantly jumps into action to help these people who are suffering.
Yeah, and I don't think she would have some experience of emergency repairs to a limited degree, but really when she was at Tom's workshop and at other times, at other places that she might work, you don't usually have to deal with these kind of life and death repairs.
No, it's usually small things or like something is purposely broken, that they have to deal with. Like there's a very specific thing to deal with. But here she's like, it's like there's all these little things that are broken, not just because of the fire, but because they have been neglected as well.
Deliberately neglected. Yeah, we find this with the wires that are a mess. When she opens up the internals, which should have nothing to do with the fire, there's so much wrong with these bots.
Yeah, and she has to try and sort them out as well as she can. And she's just jumping into action in the scene, and Albert slides in and just watches her. He just watches her, and he's ready to jump in at any moment that she needs him.
Yeah, very curious. He just comes in and looks over, but he's impressed. And this is very Albert, though. He's very, stoic. Although he can be bombastic sometimes, he tends to remain quiet in the background and quietly judgmental often.
Yes. And we also have Blinky. So this is kind of the role that Blinky finds himself in. Because he ends up being so attached to a singular person at any given point, he likes to make himself helpful. One of the things about Blinky is that he will often do puzzles and enjoys fixing things and building things and stuff. So I think he actually really enjoys automaton repair and working. But he doesn't have the ability to actually do the job, but so he's always willing to help with going to get specific items or just being a helping hand whenever he's needed.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to get lulled into the idea that Blinky is just a cute bot, and he's very cute, but he's a child and he's a human being, and I think he's actually very complex, and there's a lot going on in that head of his. We tend to think of him as a child, as disabled almost, but just like real disabled people and real children, they're exactly like everybody else. They have so much depth, and I think Blinky is actually really intelligent.
Absolutely. He's just...
It's unfortunate that he's non-verbal,
Yeah.
but that could either have been from his own brain injuries before he was an automaton, or it could be from the process being turned into an automaton. He's just got this non-verbal element, but people who are non-verbal aren't always, lacking in their intelligence.
No, I mean, as well, it doesn't even mean that there's anything wrong with them, really.
Yeah.
Some people just struggle to verbalize. I know.
Absolutely.
I have a cousin who don't think he started talking till he was maybe 5, started saying anything.
That's actually common among plenty of very intelligent individuals. I think Albert Einstein didn't verbalize for a long time.
Oh?
But there's famous individuals who haven't verbalized for a long time in their development, and then they turn out to be very influential people.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that they don't understand. It just means that they haven't gotten to the point where they feel comfortable talking or they feel maybe safe in their words.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Blinky is incredibly intelligent, but he's also a child and very emotional as well, and he just clings to certain people. He really feels an emotional connection with people. And in the last scene, we saw him take that leap to be connected with Amelia.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing it in motion. And she was so ready to ask Blinky for help and to ask Paul and to know exactly what to do. She kind of gets into this point where she's got this test and she thoughtlessly just jumps in. That, like, there's no question that she's going to fix these people.
Yeah.
There's no question she's going to help.
Blinky jumps into and he's
Oh,
just
yeah, of
there.
course.
And he knows what to do.
And also, Blinky knows where everything is because he's been in the orphanage, whereas Amelia hasn't. So as soon as she needs something, he knows. I think a lot of the workshop is organised by Blinky, if I'm honest.
Well, organised by Blinky, yeah, it probably is. Yeah, and we can see she's dealing with some very serious injuries to these automatons because the person that they are could leak onto the floor, apparently. So when there's these ichor are at the core of what automatons are. So we see that the person that they could be could leak out of this tank and drip onto the floor because ichor is essentially the heart of automatons. It's this bacteria that essentially makes a facsimile of a person. It's been bred to replicate. So it was originally kind of a parasitic organism and it was bred over time to facilitate automatons, and it's very adaptive and it takes on the memories and the whole function of a person, of its host.
It's kind of the ability to duplicate a person. That's kind of what it does.
Yeah, you had mentioned in a previous episode about how there's a line between automatons and zombies, and this is definitely another piece of connective tissue between those two concepts.
Yeah. So because these people have died, and then they re-emerge, like I think I was talking about Theseus's ship.
Yes.
With Theseus' ship, the point is that if you have a ship and you change it part by part and it becomes completely new, is it still the same ship? And that's kind of the same thing with automatons, except they don't look the same anymore. They completely change. They've changed everything, but they don't change. The bacteria can't morph itself into the shape of a person. They become automatons because that's the shell that the people in this world have made them into.
Yeah, and this ichor is so adaptive that it can then send electrochemical signals around and adapt to anything really. You didn't have to put it into the shell of an automaton. You could adapt that into everything. As we'll see, it's more than just automatons technologically. As we've seen with the pigeons as well, they're like little flying computers that have navigation on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Using that homing instinct that pigeons have, using that as well as being able to put coordinates in to make these pigeons go to the place that they're supposed to go. So there's this mesh of organic with industrial here.
Yes.
We have these two elements coming together so that they do change when they become automatons, but they are also still who they were before. It's just, it's a big change to happen.
It's a huge change in the person's life and then adapting to that new form of existence. Automatons are like not just the culmination of industrial activity and of mechanical prowess, but it's almost like its own digital revolution, but it's just a
mechanical means.
Biomechanical evolution, but it's its own completely different thing. And the whole course of human civilization is taking a different path because this has come along before digital technology and before even basic computing is still very rudimentary because they have automatons to do a lot of these jobs.
Yeah, exactly. We actually really wanted to avoid the whole AI discussion, which is highly ironic since we've got this problem with the AI copycat.
Very ironic.
That we're still dealing with, by the way. Just a little update. We are still dealing with this. We're just trying to figure out the next steps. It's taken a little while. But the whole point of doing it this way is we wanted to move away from the digital technology that we have now and kind of not get bogged down in the current real world effects and try and actually explore this as a kind of alien concept almost.
Absolutely. Get it back to the pure conceptual thoughts of immortality and of how this affects society.
Yeah.
And we avoid a lot of the other intended and unintended consequences of having digital technologies and what is alive. What is living and what is dead. And I think it was more interesting because we could also get into, as I said, that kind of zombie lore or concepts of life and death with vampire fantasy instead of having it tied to something that was more cyberpunk. And we can explore transhumanism.
Post-humanism. So Dylan, our editor, is a post-humanist scholar, and he was very clear with me that he is not a transhumanist scholar, which is a different thing. And I don't know.
Yeah, so we get
difference.
into this whole transhumanism debate, the idea of enhancing yourself, the idea of extending your life, of becoming, evolving into something technological. but without having to deal with social media and with computers and software and what is truly alive in that sense, you know. I mean, clearly automatons even have a biological core to them. They are an organism at the end of the day. So yeah, it's a different kind of exploration of these different themes. And I think it's so easy to get caught in a sort of cyberpunk future, say, and then you have to delve into many different aspects of that world that we didn't necessarily want to get bogged down in.
I also like the concept of it being organic and something from the earth, so that we don't have this idea of, oh, but it's not natural, because we have this tendency to be like, oh, this isn't natural. What's your definition of natural? Because when it comes to the point, all our resources are from the earth. It's hard to distinguish from that.
Yes.
So I wanted to purposely, and I think you did as well, Finn, purposely bring it to this, like, oh, this is a natural thing. We've just used it for this purpose.
Well, it's much more akin to breeding, say, a lot of the little experiments that were run in Victorian times with breeding pigeons, breeding dogs. I mean, we even still to this day use that as a form of technology. We don't often call it technology, but it is basically technology as a means of solving all sorts of problems. Even a lot of genetically modified crops, they're selectively picked first. There's a huge amount of breeding that goes on even in our modern incarnations of
Absolutely. I mean,
of this kind of technology.
A lot of what we have today is from nature. We have guide dogs, we have dogs that help with disability. We've trained them in this way. And so many technologies that are natural that it's worth bringing that into the conversation as well.
Yeah, and where the distinction lies, as we said. I mean, there are actually very few elements, you could say very few, there are a lot, but there are very few elements that are impossible without humankind being there.
Yeah.
There are some that are kind of a light touch that human beings almost accidentally create, but there are many that have to be specifically formed in a lab with a certain process. And it's not that many, though. We really do use nature.
Carrots used to be powerful.
Yeah, carrots. And they used to be tiny. You know, it's like, strawberries were very pale and white mostly, and they were bred into the big red strawberries that we have today. So many animals were different.
Exactly. So, you know, we've definitely had an impact as humanity. But also another thing that always bothers me is we always act as though we are separate from nature.
Yeah, we are separate
we
from
are
nature.
Not. We are animals. We are animals.
Yeah, which is fine if you're having a very particular distinction to talk about. You're trying to just be, you know, you're trying to get a point across, but you're not actually saying that we're distinct from animals. But a lot of people think we are fundamentally distinct from animals, often believing that human beings have souls, but somehow other animals don't, or they have lesser souls.
That always annoyed me when I was a kid, listening to them be like, oh, dogs don't go to heaven, but humans do. And it's like, why not? The dogs are better than us. The
Absolutely.
dogs are nicer than us. Why wouldn't they go?
It really becomes, where is the line placed? Because even arguments among very progressive people, like a lot of vegans are extremely progressive in many ways, but they have to draw the line somewhere of what don't they want to eat because it doesn't have a soul, or it doesn't look at you, or it doesn't have emotions, you know. Where do we draw the line? Like our insects, because a real debate, like, well, an insect is so basic and can be so abstract that maybe that's okay. Maybe that's not a fully living thing. But
they're all living things. This is the truth. Everything, like plants, insects, animals.
Plants, this is the thing. I think plants live quite rich lives. They're not hugely thinking. But another thing is, we think about thinking as having a brain. But, you know, more recently, there's quite a lot of evidence growing about, say, like is it mycelial structures underneath forests in this?
Yeah.
Where there's massive amounts of organisms passing information from different trees on one end of a forest to the other end of a forest.
We live in a magical world, and we always pretend we don't.
Yeah, we don't know enough about this.
It's so magical. It's so strange. I always think about this. This is one of the things where I'm like, the difference between science and magic is just understanding.
Yes.
And so we're all like, oh no, I'm a big serious science man, right? Like, I'm a big serious science man. But maybe in the times before we had science, that we had witches. And witches were just mostly women who knew stuff but didn't know all of the stuff. I'm not saying this was for everyone, but I'm saying that, like, one of the things was the local witch was somebody who would brew you some concoction to make you feel a bit better, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But we call that magic, and then then we have like these these people who decided to define it, and then suddenly it's science. But I think they were both the same thing. It's just one had more knowledge because they had more research. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I see your point entirely, and I agree with your point to a large degree. I would say there is still benefit in the idea of the scientific method, which is really
I love the scientific method. The scientific method is fantastic. I am not against it. I'm just saying that when we discuss these things and we're very distinct between one and the other, they're not that different. It's just the thing we call it now. We could still call it magic and say that we use the magic method, which is the same as the scientific method if we wanted to, but it's just a way to phrase it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it's about framing. And think back to Isaac Newton. He was also a sort of wannabe alchemist, because at that time the scientific method hadn't solidified, and you dabbled in all sorts of creative
Can I
exploits.
have a wildly hot take about Isaac Newton?
Yes.
So there's this trend on like TikTok. There'll be men will realise something for the first time that a woman would have realised in childhood, and they'll be like, oh, other people have feelings, something like that, right? And I feel like that's how I feel about Isaac Newton. It's like, oh, you realise that things fell to the ground. Good job, man. I think we all knew that. You just put a name on it. And like there were scientists that came out with this beforehand as well. But it's one of those things where it's like, I think people knew what gravity was, they just didn't have the word for it.
I don't know to what degree that is a narrative and a rhetorical element, because the point is, I don't think he just realised gravity existed. I think he theorised around what it was or what it could be.
Yeah.
I do agree with you that...
But what I'm saying is, I don't think he was the first one to do it. I think there would have been other people to do it who just didn't have the ability to talk about it on the stage that he had.
Yeah, I think it's probably the media, and probably rudimentary media as well back in the time, because, well, I say rudimentary, but a lot of books and whatever that proliferated his ideas. The idea of discovering gravity is nonsense. Because, of course, people would have discovered gravity.
Yeah, exactly.
Before.
That's the word that always gets me. It's like he didn't discover gravity. Gravity just existed.
He didn't discover gravity, but he theorised about gravity, and I think that is valuable, you know.
It is valuable, but he also wasn't the first one to do it. There was, I think Arabic scholars who had already written papers on it.
Well, yeah, we're getting into a nutshell there. There's a lot of different discoveries and invention that we disregard because it came from the Arab world or from China or from lots of other places, you know. Not the so-called West.
Exactly, or not the wealthy.
Or not the wealthy, yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know, that's just, it's a stupid thing that I think about a lot, but it's one of those things that I think about a lot. It's like, oh, I think people knew gravity exists before he told people. And
going back to your point, fundamentally, I agree with you. There's a through line between science as we know it coming out of the Enlightenment with the scientific method and with other aspects of sort of rigor that makes science what it is today a matter of fact. And there's a through line between that all the way to monasteries, religions, to people like wise women and witch doctors and God knows what. They were actually picking at what is rudimentary science. They just didn't have they didn't develop the tool set or the mindset to look at it, or perhaps they did and it dissipated. Some people may have come across a certain type of rigor or invented a certain type of rigor and it didn't stick.
Well, I think about the witch trials and how they used to set witches on fire, and I often wonder how much knowledge they lost in that.
Absolutely.
Like how many of these people were passing on knowledge generation to generation because they couldn't write, they didn't have the ability to write, so they were telling it orally to the next generation coming along, helping people learn about these things, and then they killed off these people who had this knowledge that wasn't necessarily always perfect, but just like science isn't perfect, but they were like gathering it as they went and learning from their predecessors, and we just killed them off because we were scared of them.
Well, there are many reasons, but mostly political. Yes, absolutely. And it honestly, when it comes to the amount of knowledge lost, there's no better example than Ireland, because it was an oral culture. We didn't have a lot of written language until Christianity came, more or less, maybe a bit before. But
so we were the best writers. Well, we were the ones like with the monks.
Yes, Christian monks took on to writing like ducks to water and developed that very quickly and became some of the last like
academics.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not in any way deeply informed about this, but monks, there was a certain time in which Christianity was almost on the retreat, and much of the technology of, I think, the Dark Ages, really.
I think it was the Dark Ages, yeah.
But Ireland preserved a lot of it through the monasteries that survived here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll finish up there. We could go on forever, but we...
Yeah, we really could go off. This is getting monstrous, but we love weaving all of this into the story. I think that's so much an outlet. Like, people think, I don't want politics in my entertainment, and it's nonsense.
Everything is politics. I always think this when people say they don't want politics. It's like they are privileged enough to not realise that everything in the world has politics within it. There's this phrase like, "Oh, I'm not political." It's like, because you haven't had to be yet. It hasn't happened to you yet.
Yeah. Or you're just too dumb to realise your own politics.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't mean like, even if you realise your own politics, you can realise your own politics could be very flawed, or you have stuff to learn. But you at least have to be aware that you hold a certain political position and you're trying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, my partner's not very political, but he acknowledges every time that it's just because he's privileged.
Yeah.
He's privileged enough not to have to be.
Yeah, 100%. But in this world, in Copper Hollow, people rarely have that privilege.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for listening. It was lovely to have you, and we'll catch you next time.
We'll catch you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. This episode was written, produced and performed by R. Finn and P. Rose. No AI-generated content was used in the making of this podcast. Thank you to Alex Grohl, who created the music within this episode. If you would like to support the Cindery Chronicles and our writing, please consider sharing this episode or purchasing a copy of Copper Hollow available on Amazon or Kindle. You can also find exclusive content on the Cindery Chronicles Substack. If Copper Hollow is not available in your region, please contact us at copperhollowbook@gmail.com. Your time, engagement and feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for listening.